Shalom, everybody. We are here at IAC with, I could say, one of the best friends of the Jewish people who is not a Jew. In spirit, in soul, he's definitely Jewish. All right? Colonel Richard Kemp. And first of all, good to see you again, Colonel
Great
Kemp.
to see you again here.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, not only in person, but anytime videos of you pop up online with the truth that you give for whatever audiences are hearing, for them to be able to hear the truth from you, just so important and so inspiring. So we're 11 months into this war. You are a very experienced military commander. What are your thoughts right now? And again, this is coming after Israel, for the first time, really took some serious steps against Hezbollah and Iran, with the beepers blowing up, the walkie-talkies blowing up, really targeted, taking out thousands of terrorists, if not killing all of them, injuring them all. How would you summarize the state of this war right now for the Jewish state of Israel?
Well, the attack you just spoke about, the attack using pagers and walkie-talkies, was probably the most effective terror attack against a terrorist organization that has ever taken place in history. And it's unique. Maybe it'll happen sometime, something like it in the future, but it was a unique operation, which I think just shows the Israelis' intelligence penetration of Hezbollah, for one thing. It shows the extraordinary creativity of their intelligence apparatus, that they can effectively set up a production line to turn out explosive-laden pagers and radios, which then go and are paid for by the very terrorists that they are planning to kill. So that was deeply, deeply impressive. I think it has a big effect. It has an effect on, direct effect on Hezbollah's capabilities in terms of, we don't know exactly who was killed or wounded in it and how seriously, but a lot of people were. And some of them will be senior commanders who will be difficult to replace. So it will undermine their capability. It will undermine their capability to communicate as well. It will also have a very bad impact on morale for Hezbollah.
Right.
Because they will be seen by the membership of the organization will have been seen that they will now not know which way to turn. They won't know whether an electric toothbrush is going to blow up as they start having a go at their teeth, or if a car's going to detonate, or whatever. They
Right.
really won't know. And I think that'll serve as some significant deterrent. It also humiliates the organization. They're seen as one of the most effective proxies of Iran in the region, if not the most effective, yet they've been shown to be extremely weak and vulnerable as an organization. So an extraordinary series of events.
I've been saying since October 8th that, or at the beginning of the war, this war doesn't end until, obviously, we return our captives from Gaza, and that all evacuated Israelis from down south and up north can return to their homes without any fear of ever being attacked ever again, whether by rockets in the air or by tunnels underground, because again, we know Hezbollah has been digging up there as well, and Israelis understand that. And after what happened October 7th, they don't want to go back until they know there is no Hezbollah, no Iranian threat on the other side of the border. What do you think needs to be done in order that we can get to that day that all these Israelis will be able to return home without fear ever again?
Well, the first thing I'd say is I've been living for most of the last 11 months with very few periods away, but for most 11 months with refugees, displaced people from Kiryat Shimona, and earlier on in the war from Ashkelon as well. But the Ashkelon people, fortunately, have been able to go home. The ones from Kiryat Shimona are still in the same hotel as they went into almost a year ago. And that is a terrible situation for them. There are something like 80,000, 60, 80,000, whatever the number is, people who cannot go home.
Right.
Kids who can't go to school, fathers and mothers who can't do their work, people who can't live in their houses. A terrible situation. That has to change. And the problem is not so much the rockets. The rockets are a big problem, and we've seen something like 8,000 rockets fired into Israel by Hezbollah and other terrorist groups since the 8th of October. Sometimes several, 20, 30, 40 a day in some cases, sometimes even more. But that is not the major problem. It's a problem. But they have bomb shelters. They have places they can take refuge. There's the Iron Dome. But what the big concern is of the people that I've been living with for the last year is a 7th of October in the north. And it was, in fact, a Hezbollah plan to launch an attack along the lines of 7th of October. And if they can possibly do it, they will do it. And so I think that the situation's got to be created where Hezbollah is shifted up to the north, at least to the Litani River, where they don't present the same immediate threat to Israel as the terrorists that are there now occupying right along very close to the Israeli border. And that really, I mean, frankly, that can be done in a number of different ways. One way is by diplomatic means, in other words, international pressure placed upon Hezbollah to voluntarily withdraw north. And that's been going on so far without much success, and probably that won't be effective.
So
and the second way is, I think, to make life so difficult for Hezbollah that they no longer want to remain in these places. Now that's tough as well, but this pager operation may well have that effect, combined with a significant heavy bombardment of Hezbollah over a lengthy period, which we've seen beginning already in the last few days. And the final element is the final possibility, which is perhaps the most dangerous, but also maybe the most effective and maybe necessary, is a significant ground and air-based invasion of southern Lebanon to destroy Hezbollah and force them northwards.
All right, now, so I want to ask a follow-up question, and I want to hear what your thoughts are about this following thought that also I've been saying throughout. The Israeli people have no trust in international diplomacy. United Nations Resolution 1701 was never enforced by the international community, which was supposed to forbid Hezbollah from being anywhere near the northern border and forbid them from being able to smuggle in weapons and rockets. And the international community did not enforce it. Hence, Israelis are not trusting of whatever international diplomacy, and hence the only solution in order to provide safety for the Israeli evacuees to return to their homes is by a military offensive solution. What are your thoughts about that?
You're absolutely right. There are something like 12,000 UNIFIL UN forces in Lebanon. 12,000. What are they doing? Nothing. They're patrolling, they're writing reports, but they certainly have not achieved the implementation of that UN resolution that you mentioned. So, of course, who could trust them? I've served with the UN. I've been a member of UN peacekeeping forces in different parts of the world. I know what it's like. I know how restricted their mandate is. Even if the countries which make up the UN forces wanted to actually take action and deal with a situation effectively, the UN's mandates almost invariably preclude that happening. So, no, of course, no one could rely on the UN for this in this sort of situation. They're useful in some other places. They're not useful in a combat zone like southern Lebanon. The only people that Israel can rely on to defend them, to protect them, both in Lebanon, on the Lebanese border, in that area of northern Israel, in Gaza, anywhere else in Israel, is the IDF. Nobody else, not the Americans, not the UN, not the Europeans, no other international force can Israel rely on to defend them, only the IDF. And that's the reason why somehow the IDF have got to take action, I think, in southern Lebanon to make it safe for all those people to return home. It's not going to be an easy fight, in my view. If they have to go in on the ground and in the air, it's going to be a tough fight. There's going to be a lot of missiles flying in both directions, actually. And there's potential for some pretty serious casualties among Israeli civilians deep into Israel, which is what Hezbollah will definitely be attempting to target when the war begins.
So, with your military expertise, I just wanted to pick your brains on potential military offensive from Israel into Lebanon. And I'm asking you as someone who, I used to be part of the battalion of the Northern Brigade, that we were trained every year that the next war is Lebanon, the next war in Lebanon. Again, this is the 90s and the early 2000s, until I switched units. Again, I was there for the Second Lebanon War. Today, obviously, Lebanon, Hezbollah and Iran are prepared for us to come up through the northern border, right? booby traps, tunnels. Who knows what they're prepared for? It'll be a very hard land offensive. On the other hand, we experienced in the Second Lebanon War in 2006, which was mainly an air offensive, because we didn't use the ground forces properly to win that war. It was mainly the Air Force, an Air Force war. It didn't do the job. We're here today because we didn't succeed in 2006 to end the Hezbollah Iranian threat in Lebanon. Knowing these issues, or unless you disagree with them, what are our options in order to go into southern Lebanon and take care and really annihilate the Hezbollah Iranian military threat against us?
Well, let's not forget that the IDF has been very active in southern Lebanon since the Hezbollah began firing missiles into Israel on the 8th of October. The IDF, the Israeli Air Force in particular, have been very, very active, destroying Hezbollah missile launch sites, destroying other munitions, killing Hezbollah terrorists in large numbers. And at the same time, of course, preparing the battlefield for a future operation. And that includes, of course, very, very intensive intelligence gathering. And they, you know, we saw from the pager operation, we saw how effective the IDF and the Israeli intelligence services have been at penetrating Hezbollah. So they will have a great deal of intelligence on Hezbollah's dispositions and their preparations that you rightly say they've made. And the second thing I think to note is that the IDF has now had nearly a year's experience fighting in Gaza against an enemy that is not dissimilar from Hezbollah. They're not the same. The terrain is different, the population density is different, the tactics are different, numerous other differences, but nevertheless, they've gained a huge amount of extremely valuable experience fighting in Gaza over the last year, which they will put to good use in Lebanon when they have to go in there. They will obviously adapt it, but they will use it. And for example, 98th Division, which has been incredibly effective inside Gaza, fighting both above ground and in the tunnels.
Right.
Very, very effective combat division of the IDF is heading
north.
Is heading or has already arrived in the north, ready to do their stuff in Lebanon as well if they're ordered to do so.
Right.
So I'm not. I have to say, I mean, when I look at the extraordinary combat effectiveness of the IDF inside Gaza, they've achieved things that everyone said they could never achieve. They've killed something like 20,000 Hamas terrorists, which is an estimate, but it's going to be in that ballpark somewhere. 20,000 terrorists, what the IDF estimate. Something like 350 or thereabouts, maybe a bit more, IDF soldiers have been killed in action. Unfortunately, we had some news the other day of a few more being killed. But that comparison is extraordinary in itself. I don't care about the fact that the two armies are different, that one is very sophisticated, the other is less so. They're fighting in different ways. But the reality is that difference in casualty ratios is extraordinary. It shows an amazing fighting capability of the IDF. Normally, let's remember that the IDF sustained somewhere in the region of 250 plus casualties, deaths, against 20,000 enemy deaths. And the IDF is attacking, right? Hamas were defending.
Right.
That's the situation. The rule of thumb in all Western armies is that an attacking force will sustain 3 times as many casualties as a defending force.
Wow.
That is the rule of thumb. We've got not only a reverse of that situation here, but a significant, more than a reverse of it, much more than reverse. So this to me shows the extraordinary effectiveness. And this is the most complicated, the toughest battlefield any army has ever fought on in the history of warfare. I don't say it's the most intense. I was in Ukraine a few times during the course of the war there, and I've seen much more intense battlefields there, places like Bakhmut, which can only really be compared to the Battle of Stalingrad. Very intense, very high number of casualties, but far more straightforward in a way than this. This situation here involves decades of preparation by Hezbollah, by Hamas, of a battlefield, booby traps, landmines, escape routes, all planned, all worked out in detail to kill the enemy the Israeli enemy when they arrive. Very densely populated area makes urban conflict in a densely populated area is the hardest form of fighting that any army has to fight in. You then got the underground tunnel system. That is completely new, nothing like it. There have been other battles where tunnels have been used, nothing like this scale, this complexity of tunnels. Then you have hostages on top of all of this. And then you have the glare of the international media desperate to show Israel committing war crimes. Right. All of these things make it very, very tough. Yet they have excelled, the IDF has excelled. They've taken a long time over it, but it's very, very complicated. And I think I would take from what I've seen in Gaza, and I've been in Gaza several times since this war began, I've seen the IDF fighting firsthand. What I would take from this conflict in Gaza is the fact they're going to be extraordinarily effective as well in Lebanon if they have to go there. I don't say it's going to be an easy fight. I don't say that they're going to get away without maybe a large number of casualties, but they will be incredibly effective there as well, based on their track record in Gaza.
Wow. Final words of encouragement for the Israeli people, families, children are out fighting, whether in Gaza or being sent up to Lebanon. My own son is part of the 98th. He was just sent up to the Lebanese border to prepare for there. What final words of encouragement do you have based on reality for all these families of soldiers, husbands, sons, etc.?
Well, good luck to your son in the 98th Division. I've met many people in the 98th Division, very, very effective fighting division of the IDF, and they have many other very effective fighting divisions as well. But what I would say is that all Israelis should be deeply, deeply proud of their sons, their husbands, their daughters, their wives, the huge number of people who have been fighting in this war in one way or the other. They should be deeply, deeply proud of them. You may not have had the opportunity I've had to see them firsthand fighting, but if you had, you would be even more proud. And I would say also that the Western world as a whole should be deeply proud of these soldiers, because although they're fighting for Israel, they're not fighting for Europe, they're not fighting for the United States, they're fighting for their family, their friends, their relations, their homes, their land. That's what they're fighting for. But they're also, they may not know it, they may not think it, they're also fighting for us, because Israel's war is our war. Israel's going to prevail in this war. There is no question in my mind. Israel is going to prevail. Israel's going to win. They're on the way. They're pretty much defeated Hamas in Gaza. They are going to do whatever they need to do to Hezbollah. They will deal with Iran. It'll all take time, but ultimately Israel will succeed. And Israel will emerge from this conflict even stronger than it went into it. It went into it very strong. It'll be even stronger. And part of the reason for that, only part of the reason for that, is the generations and generations of Israelis, men and women, who have fought in this conflict. And that gives extraordinary strength, I think, to any country, to have that terrible situation though it is, and you wouldn't wish it on anyone, but it does bring with it strength to any country. And I believe that's what's going to be the outcome of this war, that it'll have its reputation, despite all the smears and the slur campaign against it, the lies that are told on the international stage, whether it's in the United Nations, in different parliaments, in international courts, in the media and universities. Those lies will be proved to be wrong. Israel will emerge with its reputation intact, and it will emerge strong. And I think, even those people who are now, and there's some, maybe particularly in the diaspora, who are worried about the future of Israel, I don't think they need to be. I think they can be very, very confident in a great country which has a great future.
Thank you so much for those words, and I believe that many people will be comforted hearing them specifically from you, knowing your experience and knowledge of the actual battlefields of the world. So thank you so much, Colonel Kemp, because those words coming from you with such experience and knowledge really mean a lot. And also thank you for you're part of the front line also on the international field and the media field for Israel, and the Jewish people are deeply indebted and thankful and grateful for all of your efforts in that sphere as well. So may God bless you to continue to be the voice of reason, of sanity, morality and justice and standing up for Israel, because again, it's about protecting the whole freedom-loving world, not just of Israel. So God bless you.
Thank you very much.
That's it for another episode of the Pulse of Israel here, again, at the IAC Summit. We found a nice quiet room to be able to do this interview. If you are not yet a subscriber to Pulse of Israel, go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And we are a donor-based organization to be able to get this inspiring, politically incorrect truth out there for more people to see, because we're highly censored on social media. Every once in a while, click on the donate button on pulseofisrael.com. Shalom, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.